Hey, Joey Star here. Today I'll be introducing you to a really old tea from Brazil that's still very popular today. In fact, it's to the point where it's now owned by the Coca-Cola company. It is called Mate Leão. It is made from what is sometimes referred to as erva mate, which is a tea plant that's indigenous to southern Brazil. Now, the history is a little fuzzy on when it transitioned from being the native drink of the Guarani to the commercial product it is today. We do know that the Mate Leão brand does go back as far as 1901. I won't go much further into the rich history of this product and that company, but I do encourage you to research it some more on your own. And in fact, you can start by checking out the Wikipedia entry for it, which I'll put in the link in the description below. When I was growing up, my mom drank tea all the time, pretty much all day long. It was a staple in her daily routine and her go-to drink when she was out and about. In fact, from the time I was about 8 or 9 years old until my early adulthood, sometimes I would make the tea for her because I knew how hard she worked and I wanted to help her out. She used to tell me that I made the tea better for her than anybody else she knew. I'm pretty sure it's because I poured my heart into every cup because it was me helping my mom. While mom was fairly selective about the teas that she drank, at any given time you would find boxes of Oriental, kosher, and American tea bags in our cabinets. But whenever she made her trips to Brazil, which was usually very frequently, she always made sure to bring a few boxes of Mate Leão. This was one of the very few special teas that she truly enjoyed and actually would take the time to brew it properly from loose leaves instead of tea bags. One of the reasons why mom used to bring them from Brazil instead of buying them imported here in the US, well, part of it was the price. I mean, when you grow up in South America and you pay, a certain amount for tea, and then you come to another country like the US and you find the same tea, but when you convert, the money and stuff, it ends up costing like 5 or 6 times what you would pay in the country that you visit annually. I mean, you can understand why she really wouldn't want to buy it from the local bodega. But in a pinch, pun intended, in a pinch, you could go to a bodega and pick up a box of it, but the packaging is kind of different, and according to mom, the tea tasted kind of different too. I don't know if there was an agricultural process when it was imported. I mean, I know that it gets imported into New Jersey, at least these days it gets imported into Jersey, I believe Newark. And I don't know if there's an additional processing because of FDA rule regulations and that sort of thing. Mom would go to Brazil once a year or once every 12 to 18 months. She'd come back, she'd bring back about 3 or 4 boxes because she wasn't drinking this tea every day. This was like special, like on her day off, she's relaxing or she has nothing planned for the day. She just wants to kind of watch some TV and have some tea. This is what she would make. It would bring her great joy and probably made her feel like she was back home too. So anyway, I haven't been to Brazil in a few years. It's not the cheapest flight to take, and not to mention that we've kind of been in a pandemic on and off for a year and a half now. I managed to get some through Amazon. I mean, hey, where would we be without Amazon, right? I mean, after watching this video, if you're interested in trying it for yourself, or even if you know about the tea and you don't know where to get it, if you look in the description below, you will find a link to it on Amazon, and you'll help support this channel while you're at it. All right, so what we need to make this tea, of course, first of all, we'll need a box of this right here, Mate Leão. Okay, let's see how well you can see this or not, but everything here is in Portuguese. Oh, it's a little too bright there. Everything here is in Portuguese. I can read a little bit of Portuguese, not great, but thankfully I already know how to make this. Obviously, you need a teacup, something to drink your tea in, a pot to boil water. The instructions refer to it as a colher de sopa, basically translates to soup spoon, okay? I like using this one. This particular one, when I measure with this, I know exactly what I'm getting, and it comes out right. You'll see in a little bit. You'll need one of these, little strainer things. And the reason why is because, like mom, I will be making this from loose leaf. I don't want to drink and suck down leaves into my throat. It's not pleasant. I've done it before. And because I'm a little bit anal about this kind of stuff, a spoon too, specifically for stirring the tea. Also, although it's already in the cup waiting, whatever sweetener you're going to use, some people use sugar, some people use whatever, a substitute. Some people like to drink their tea black. Whatever, that's up to you, whatever your preference is. Whatever way you're used to having your tea, if you have this the same way as far as condiments go, you're going to find that you should find that it tastes better. It's a little more exotic. So, looking at the instructions, oh, that's another thing. There's probably about at least 3 or 4 ways that I'm aware of to brew your matcha, okay? And the way I'm going to do it, it's partially according to the instructions that they put on the box, and partially based on my memory of how Mom would make it. I kind of found a compromise between the two that I happen to find delightful. But the neat thing is, something I want to point out, this is obviously the imported version of the tea, and the box seems to be the exact same box that pretty much my whole life has been, but they added these 2 stickers to the side. One has the nutritional information. First of all, it reminds you that it's a yerba matcha. It's just a category of tea, particularly ones that come from the kind of plants that this is made from. It's interesting because the nutritional information here is in English. You know, basically tells you calories, how much fat, how much cholesterol, you know, it's 0 for all that stuff. But there's a sticker underneath that that's very obviously added on long after this was packaged. And it gives you a rough idea of how to make it, basic instructions on how to make the tea. And I think that's pretty neat. I could read the instructions to you in Portuguese, but Portuguese is such a beautiful language, and the last thing I want to do in my first tea video is to butcher such a pretty language with my heavy accent. Anyway, let's get started. Oh yeah, if we're following instructions to the tea, then you're probably going to want a measuring cup too. And the reason why is because there's a recommended ratio of tea to water to achieve the best flavor. And with a tea like this, I can tell you right now, I bought it from Amazon. I'm not saying that it's not worth it, but it's a little pricey. Definitely way more than I would have paid if I was in Brazil. But then again, $1,000+ for a round trip ticket to Brazil, plus whatever expenses there, to come back with a couple of boxes just to save $4 or $5 per box. Yeah, I think I'll be okay with the Amazon. That's right. And not to mention that, you know, with Prime, free shipping, baby. Woo-hoo. Anyway, so let's continue. Thankfully, I have one of those measuring cups that contains both the American system and the metric system, because guess what? Brazil uses the metric system, and the instructions are also using the metric system. All right, so we need about a liter of water. Hopefully I have enough filters here to make a liter. And, ooh, just enough. See, that's how you know this take was meant to be, because I had just exactly, look at it, it's empty, exactly 1 liter. You can't make this up. Pour the water into my teapot. So now while I'm waiting for that to boil, I'm gonna do my best to explain a story that my mom told me. Now, I kind of asked around to a few of my Brazilian resources because I don't 100% remember this story. This is a story my mom used to tell me. Probably started when I was about 8 or 9 years old, when I was making tea for her. Because when I was that age, I did speak some Portuguese, not fluently, of course, but pretty good for somebody that didn't live in Brazil. So she knew I could appreciate the humor in the way that the story is presented. I'm not sure if it's like a story, a folklore, or even just like a joke somebody would just tell to their friends. And unfortunately, I mean, I even spoke to a couple of my brothers, and nobody even remembers hearing the story at all, much less, you know, whatever the details are. So I remember the punchline. I remember some of the more important details. I don't remember the backstory as well. So I'm going to try to reconstruct it right now in front of you, because it does take a couple of minutes to boil water anyway. So what the hell? I mean, I'll start with the hard part of the story, because that's the beginning of the story anyway. The backstory, I'm going to just kind of partially make it up, partially remember, partially figure out, well, you know, Brazilians like to tell these type of humorous stories. Anyone that has a Brazilian background, Brazilian upbringing, or is close friends with people that match that description, you may have noticed that there's some common themes among little jokes and sayings and these little stories. So hopefully you'll pick up on that as I tell this story. Main character is this gentleman who was invited to his best friend's house. Best friend wanted to speak to him about something important. Doesn't tell him what this important thing is they wanted to speak about, but our protagonist actually for the last, like, at least last year or so, has been having an affair with the host's wife, his best friend's wife. So in his own head, he's thinking to himself, oh man, maybe he knows, maybe he's got to confront me. He goes, why isn't he showing up to my house to like kick my ass or something, or confront me over the phone? Like, why is he making it so important for me to come to his house alone, no less, to speak about something important? But at the same time, he's not sure if that's what the topic is. What's so important? Am I being confronted about the affair? Is it something else? Who knows? Goes to his friend's house, the host. So they're sitting at the table, and they're just talking about whatever. And protagonist asks the host, he says, hey, he goes, you told me there was something that you needed to speak to me about that was very important. I'm kind of concerned, what's going on. So the host says, okay, we'll talk about that, but, we should have some tea. To interject for a second. Mache Leone. Now you see here, this is spelled the classic way. M-A-T-T-E, Machi. Okay? If you go to Brazil now, they refer to the tea with T, Sha, T. They refer to that as Machi, but now they spell it with a single T instead of a double T. But Mache Leone, they kept the traditional spelling because at the time the product was made, that's what it was called, and it's a trademark now. For those of you who do not speak Portuguese, machi spelled with a single T, pronounced the same way, can also mean kill. So anyway, the host is ready to have this talk, but he wants to have this, tea with his friend or protagonist, and he turns to the maid, points to the protagonist and says, oh, machi es homem. Es homem meaning this man. So machi, this man, or in this case, he means, get this man some tea, machi, get this man machi. But of course, our protagonist, because he's paranoid about being found out about the affair, his thought is, oh, he wants to kill me, and he's shaking. And probably the way I told it, it's very anticlimactic, but that's kind of the punchline. Machi es homem. It's that kind of that double meaning. Machi as in tea, and machi as in kill. Hopefully, if you at least speak Portuguese or have that culture, hopefully you found that at least a little bit humorous. I kind of butchered the story. Apologies, I did my best. I researched on the internet. I couldn't find the damn story. No matter what I did, I guess it's kind of lost to the generations. But yeah, that's the story. And so what would happen is every once in a while, Mom would bring that up to me. Especially if it's been a while since we had this. Particularly when I was an adult. She didn't stop me per se, but she wasn't big on giving me caffeine as a kid because I was kind of hyper enough. But, when I was a teenager, and especially when I was an adult, and she knew I was drinking coffee and tea, and she would ask me about it. And then she would like, oh, you want me to machi? Machi você means machi you. So yeah, Mom, I want you to kill me. Kill me with your tea. But that kind of stuff is the reason why I miss her. Miss her sense of humor. And one of the cool things about it too is that expression, machi es homem, from that story, I probably heard it like 50 times throughout my life, but every single time Mom brought it up, it was like it was only the first or second time that I had heard it, or at least she would treat it that way. So the next part of the instruction is to add 2 colheres de sopa of the loose leaf tea into the pot. Now this is where it gets kind of different depending on how you make it. I personally prefer to put it straight in the pot once the water is boiling and allow it to seep in there. Some people don't like it straight in the water like that. Some people, particularly if they use a separate serving pot, the one that does not go on the stove, to serve guests. Like if you have guests, you might do this. They prefer to pour the water, put the tea leaves into this guy, pour the water through that, and allow that to drip down into the serving pot and seep that way. It's only me and my dog here, my dog and I don't have one of those serving pots anyway, and I don't need one because you know what? Who cares? I'm the only one here drinking this tea. And if you hear that, it's whistling. So now it's time to add 2 of these. One of the great joys I had about opening this box from Amazon was that before I even got to this box, when I was just opening the Amazon box, I can already smell that fragrance that comes from a Yoruba machi tea. It's kind of hard to explain if you never smelled it before. It's spicy, but not like a hot spicy, not that kind of spicy. More like, it's fragrant. It's very fragrant. And you can almost smell, there's something very old-fashioned about the way that it smells. At least to me, it's old-fashioned because the very first time that I went to South America, I was 5 years old. And that was probably the first, because prior to that, Mom had not gone to Brazil for a long time, since sometime before I was born. So it'd been at least half a decade for her. It was never for me. And I started to smell these teas either on the airplane on the way there, because we took one of the Brazilian airlines, or when we were at my aunt's house, because I know, or my mother's aunt. I know we started off at my aunt's house for a few weeks before going to the next area of Brazil. There's a whole backstory, you don't need to hear about that, but the point is, this smell I kind of associate with old Brazil, retro for me at least, back from when I was a kid. So your Sweet Touch Knee, your, like I said, your kosher and American teas, your Tetleys, even your Chinese teas, the Chinese teas smell a little bit closer to what this smells like, but the other tea is not even close. So it's definitely a unique kind of smell. I'm sure there's other countries that have teas like this, particularly in Europe, because I know they love their teas too. Again, this is a part where, depending on who's making it, the recipe might be a little bit different, particularly when it comes to the amount of time that you like it to seep. Mom would only really let it seep no more than 3 to 5 minutes. Personally, I like my tea a little more robust, so I'm going to seep it for about 10 minutes, and I'm just going to set my oven timer for that 10 minutes now. I guess if there's one thing I want to add, I live in the Hudson Valley, New York, an area close to where I live right now, known as Monticello. It's in Sullivan County. From the time I was a little boy up until just a few years ago, there was a Spanish bodega in Monticello called Julio's. And once in a while, particularly if Mom took a couple of years off from going to Brazil, sometimes if she wanted to get the matcha Leao, she can get it from there. He would have it. I don't remember the exact price that she paid for the tea at Julio's, nor what regular tea costs in comparison, to make that comparison. But I know while she appreciated that she was able to get it somewhere locally, she did still complain about how much it cost. She basically said that converted the US dollars to cruzeiros, how much that is in cruzeiros, you're paying about 4 or 5 times the cost for one box of this that you would in Brazil, in Brazil. And at that time, when she was going to Brazil, she was basically, she would stay in Belo Horizonte. It was a city, kind of like Manhattan, but obviously much smaller. So city prices in Brazil was still about a quarter of the cost of a box of this up in the mountains in upstate New York, just to give you an idea. Okay, so the 10 minutes are up now. Real quick before I continue, any of my Brazilian friends or other Portuguese speaking friends, if you're familiar with the story that I inadvertently butchered, trying to explain, if you heard the story, if you know the story, please communicate it to me somehow. Either drop it into the comments below or shoot me an email. The email address will be in the description for this video. Yeah, let me know if you know the story. I can be way off. Something to consider is that especially if it's something from when my mother was a little girl, is at that time, they had books and stuff, but there was no internet. A lot of these stories were passed generation to generation, mouth to mouth. Anyone familiar with the old game of telephone when they were in elementary school, whenever you pass these stories, sometimes details get changed, some things get left off, and then somebody thinks they remember something, like me for example, thinks they remember something and then they really don't, so they just kind of fill in their own blanks, and by the time it reaches YouTube, it's a whole different story, right? If you're familiar with any version of that story, feel free, let me know about it. I would love to hear it. All right, so now tea's been seeping for 10 minutes. It's not that I don't know what to do, of course I know what to do, but I wanted to share the little bit of literature from the box according to this. So there's a picture of like a pitcher, a serving pitcher, the kind you would use for juice or lemonade or something. It says já tá pronto, which means you're ready or you're set. Serva quente gelado ou se você quiser. So they're saying serve it cold or any way that you want. That's a little embarrassing. Pode aducar. I'm not sure. When I read this originally, I thought they were making a comment about the sugar, but now I'm looking at this word here. It's actually a verb. Pode means you can. I don't know if it means improvise, but they're basically saying, hey, once that's seeped for 10 minutes, you're set. Do what you do with tea. That's basically what they're saying. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do what I do with tea. We got this stuff. I'm going to use this to strain the leaves out, and maybe I should show you this on camera, actually. You see, it just kind of, it's neat as it kind of sits right on top here, like this, comfortably. So then, I can pour directly from the teapot, straight through the strainer, into my cup. And, all right, so, a couple things I want to show you. Number one, here's the tea leaves, see, caught up in here. So you can see that's a lot. I mean, I didn't even pour half of what was in the pot there. And you see there was a lot to be caught. All right, so now here's the tea. It's served. First I want to talk about the way it looks. I don't know if I can show that really well here. Let me sip something because I don't want to spill it because I I got a little carried away pouring it. So let's see this all show up without spilling it. There we go. See, it's nice and dark, okay? Because again, I like it robust. I like it a little stronger than mom would. You can't really tell because the cup is dark too. It's almost as dark as like a black tea. I guess it could almost be categorized as like, let me see. Let's take a look at some of the leaves here. If you're looking at the actual leaves, there, some of it's black, some of it's like a dark brown. So the color of the tea itself, once it's been brewed, is about that color, about that dark. That's one of the things I like about it. And of course, got the steam coming out of there now. The smell. Let's visit our senses, right? That was our sight. The scent, or I should say, the aroma. This is what I was talking about before when I opened the box from Amazon. The fragrance is so strong inside of this box when it was originally sealed that it permeated the inside of the Amazon box. And in fact, I didn't even have the box fully open before I could smell it. I can practically smell it through the sealed Amazon box. That's how strong it is. And that sounds like it might not be a good thing, but trust me, it's a great thing. It's like potpourri without being so flowery. Like a tea potpourri. A tea potpourri. Yeah, I like that. Anyway, so the smell, once again, besides being the brewed version of what's in this box, it really takes me back to retro Brazil. Brazil in the, we'll say the 1980s particularly, the mid to late 1980s when I associate this aroma with, and there were times I've been there in the 1990s. 1997 was the last time I was in Brazil. This takes me back to 1997 because I remember drinking some of this there. And it's not that I didn't have matcha since then. I mean, of course, mom would bring it back, and sometimes she'd brew it and I'd visit her. And of course, she'd say, hey, matcha você? And I'm like, yeah, me matcha, mom. Me matcha. Yeah, kill me, mom. So of course I smell it then, but just that smell, it just takes me back to all those times I visit, because when I'd visit my mom, it's once in a while she would make it. In Brazil, drinking this kind of tea is a regular part of life. Drinking tea is a regular part of life, whether it's matcha or it's another brand. However, this brand's gotten so big over there that, see, this is the original, like on the box it even says it's the original. They have different blends. They have iced teas that they make, bottled teas, like very similar to like Lipton or Snapple. You go in there and they have the bottle. It might be black, it might be diet, they might infuse some other flavors in there. So I mean, I think especially once Coca-Cola realized the potential of money and they bought them, they really started to expand on those flavors, because that's what Coca-Cola does, right? That's what the scent reminds me of, okay? And as I take a sip, I come from a time when you go to a restaurant, they serve you your food hot. Your beverages are served, if it's a hot beverage, it's served hot. Soup is hot. Pizza is hot. You run the risk of burning yourself, and the restaurant wasn't petrified that you're gonna sue them into bankruptcy because, I didn't take a second and sip my tea. I had to try to gulp it. I burned my inside. Now, so I come from a time where you drank tea hot. Now, feeling that now, so yes, you must sip it. And just the feel of the tea hitting my lips. Now, granted, I could probably just drink a cup of hot water, plain hot water, and feel the same way. But the combination of the heat from the liquid and taking in the smell, because again, I have this up here to my mouth, so it's by my nose too, and I have this very strong sense of smell. I'm getting that double whammy of that fragrance from that tea and the heat hitting my lips. Now, you've probably noticed that in the last few seconds I can't stop myself from sipping it. I just keep sipping it as I explain things. The reason why is because the flavor is so good. If your only exposure to tea, you know, whatever, you know, Lipton tea or Tetley or, you know, just the American teas, those teas are fine. They're good. I like them too, actually. I also really like the Chinese teas, particularly the ones you get in the fancier Chinese restaurants where they just, you know, it's complimentary while you're at the table. If your only exposure has been like those type of teas, A, I recommend you try this. B, the experience is different. It's going to be closer to the Chinese tea you had in the restaurants than it is the one you brewed at home that's American made. But just something about this, what's really neat is that, you know, you don't need to be an expert. You can follow some simple instructions like the ones I gave you, and you're gonna go on a flavor journey. You're gonna go on a flavor journey. This is gonna take you to South America and possibly some other countries too. Full disclosure, I've never tried proper Portuguese tea. I'd be willing to bet it's amazing. So, you know, maybe in a future video, maybe what I'll do is at some point, if I feel inspired to, or there's a lot of comments asking for me to try it, maybe I'll research some Portuguese tea and try it in another video. Either make a comparison or just try it on its own. You let me know. I love teas. I love trying new stuff, especially stuff from other cultures, ethnic foods and drinks. If there's some teas that you'd like me to review, let me know. Because one of the universal things about tea throughout this world is that even when you're paying five times as much at the local bodega, it's still a fairly affordable thing to purchase and worth trying. You know what I mean? So I might spend $12 for a box like this at Amazon as opposed to like $1.50 in Brazil. You know what? I can spend $12 for a tea that I might possibly hate. But chances are, because I am a tea drinker, chances are I'm not going to hate it. I just may not love it as much as I love other ones, such as the matcha. I'd like to take a moment to say this video is dedicated to Auto Augusta de Oliveira, my mother, without whom, well, not only would I not be born, but I wouldn't quite be the man that I am today without her. So, thank you, Mom. This cup's for you. Thank you so much, everybody. Please, if you have comments, drop them below. Please like, subscribe to this channel, share it, tell your friends, do all that stuff. Everything's below. I'll leave links below, God willing. There'll be some more videos for you to watch as well. All right? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you.